Most people think their income is the biggest barrier between them and wealth. They think when I earn more, then I'll save more, invest more, and live a better life. But that's not how it works. In fact, that very way of thinking is what's holding you back. Once I started thinking like a wealthy person, long before I had any money, that's when my external financial reality started to match what I believed inside. That's how I achieved financial freedom, and that's when I realized there are 7 wealth blockers. These are very specific patterns of thinking and being that are exactly what's standing in your way of creating wealth. And the last one, it's the biggest of them all. So the first one that we're going to talk about is lifestyle creep. Lifestyle creep is when every time you earn more money, you spend more. A bigger paycheck turns into a nicer car, a bigger house, or more gadgets. And on the surface, it feels like progress. But here's the catch. Your savings, your investments, your freedom, they stay exactly where they were. I remember when I first started making more money. It was in the early days of when I launched my first business. I went out and I bought a brand new dining room table. We're not talking IKEA or Walmart furniture. This was an actual furniture store table that cost me well over $1,000. I figured I worked hard. I was earning more money when the kids and I deserved new furniture. At first, I polished that table every single week, along with the chairs, every week, until one of the kids gouged it with a fork. But the lifestyle inflation didn't stop there. The furniture store had me hooked. I could put anything I wanted on layaway and pay for it over time, and pick it up, or even have it delivered when it was paid off. After the new dining room table, there were 2 sets of bunk beds for the 4 boys, and a day bed for my daughter, a new couch, a better computer. The list of stuff just went on and on. It all felt like I was leveling up. But when I looked at my accounts months later, nothing had changed. I wasn't any closer to financial freedom. I just had nicer stuff. In fact, when people came over to visit, they thought I was rich and that I had made it because I had all this nice stuff in the apartment. But the reality was, I was just a broke single mom with a spending problem. And years later, I looked back at that time in my life after I read the book, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. He says that wealth is what you don't see. People see the cars, the clothes, the house, the brand new dining room table. But the real measure of wealth is what's left after you stop spending. This wealth blocker is so easy to identify, but often hard to break. Because like me, you feel like you deserve nicer stuff for all your hard work. But think of it like this. Instead of giving yourself a lifestyle raise, give yourself a wealth raise. Next time you get a raise or bonus, take a minute to think about this. How much of this extra money can go to my future self, not just today's self? That's where wealth begins. And I want you to notice something here. Not just today's self. What I'm saying here is, sure, you can give your present self some of that extra money, but be sure you're also creating wealth with this money as well for your future self. We all fall into this. It's normal to want to celebrate. But when you start prioritizing financial freedom over just more stuff, you don't just upgrade your lifestyle, you upgrade your life. The second wealth blocker is time poverty. You ever feel like you're just too busy to get ahead, like you're juggling work and family and errands and endless responsibilities? And wealth building is always the thing that gets pushed to someday. That's time poverty. It's when your calendar is so full, but your financial freedom stays on hold. I remember a season of my life when I was doing everything for everyone. I had 5 kids at home. I was running a business, volunteering, managing the household, and so many things else. And I kept telling myself, I'll get serious about money when things calm down. But guess what? Things never calmed down. I wasn't lazy and I wasn't irresponsible. I was just buried in survival mode, reacting to life instead of building it. At the end of each month, I'd think, where did the time go? Where did the money go? And why am I still stuck in the same place? And what I learned is that if you never prioritize wealth, wealth will never prioritize you. You can't wait for a perfect moment. You have to claim a small amount of time right now to make it matter, because even in the busiest seasons, there's always something you can reclaim, a mindset, a boundary, a pause. I wish there was someone who would have told me this years ago, to take a few moments just to pause and find one small thing that I could do to move myself forward. And that's what I'm doing now. And it's what you can do as well. Just take a moment to look around at your current situation and find something you can do today that your future self will be so happy that you took the time to do. Something that's going to move you to where you want to be. And this doesn't have to be something huge. It doesn't have to be a list of things. It can simply be one thing. And that's how you start trading time poverty for future wealth. Wealth blocker number 3 is an overfocus on income and an underfocus on assets. We've been taught to chase the paycheck, to focus on getting a better job, a raise, more money per hour. But here's the thing. Income alone doesn't build wealth. Ownership does. I used to obsess over how much I was earning. Every project, every extra client, every time I increased my rates. And don't get me wrong, that money helped. But I started to realize something. Every time I stopped working, the money stopped coming. If I took a few days off to spend with the kids, well, no client work, no income. When I took time off to visit my dad before he passed, I spent a few hours every morning I was there just doing some client work so that I could afford the trip. And that was precious time I could have spent with my dad. And you know what else? Every month, I was starting from zero. I had to hustle, bring in new clients, complete more projects just to keep the bills paid. It didn't matter how much income I was earning. I wasn't building something that lasted. I wasn't really building wealth. Wealth isn't just about how much you make. It's about how much you keep, what you grow, what keeps working even when you don't. So if you're constantly thinking, I need to make more, it's time to ask a few better questions. What am I building? What wealth am I creating? What am I growing to sustain me so I don't always have to hustle for the paycheck? Because it's one thing to earn more money. It's another thing to create a financial freedom plan. Wealth blocker number 4. Oh, this is a big one that got in my way. Delayed life syndrome. I think this one's actually kind of sneaky because it sounds responsible. It sounds noble even. I'll focus on building wealth when the kids are grown, when the debt's paid off, when I finally retire. When. But here's the truth. Waiting doesn't create wealth. Living does. There was a time when I kept telling myself, just get through this one hard season. I was in debt, raising kids, navigating stress, and I thought the best thing I could do is just put my nose to the grindstone, work hard, and wait for things to get better. I thought someday when life slowed down, then I'd give myself permission to dream bigger, to focus on money, to take care of myself. But someday kept moving. My kids are grown, raised in poverty just like I was, and nothing had changed. The truth is, there'll always be something that will make now feel like a bad time. So instead of waiting for that perfect moment, what if you just decided you were worth it now? What if wealth isn't something you earn later? What if it's something you align your life with today? Your present life deserves the wealth and abundance that you keep putting off for someday. Even if you still have debt, even if life is full, even if you're not where you want to be yet, you don't have to put your entire life on hold for one area to get better. You just need to grow with it. Stop postponing your life, your decisions, your wealth building journey. Wealth isn't waiting at the end of the rainbow, at the end of your life. It's waiting at the edge of your decisions. This next wealth blocker is really tough to wrap your head around, and that's misaligned values or conflicting goals. This one shows up when you say you want wealth, but deep down you don't want to become the kind of person you think it takes to create wealth. You want financial freedom, but not if it means hustle culture. You want abundance, but not if it means sacrificing family time. You want success, but not if it means being like those people. And here's what happens. You send yourself mixed signals. You start chasing a goal with your words while your values pull you in the opposite direction. I remember a time when I kept saying I wanted more money. I was journaling it, visualizing it, setting goals around it. But every time someone talked about waking up at 4 a.m. to hustle and building 5 streams of income and never taking a break or being obsessed with productivity, I would cringe. I didn't even realize it, but that part of me was rejecting wealth because I thought those things were the only roads that led to wealth. What I had to learn was this. You don't have to choose between wealth and alignment, but you do have to get honest about what kind of wealth you actually want to build and what kind of life you're willing to live for. Because wealth isn't one size fits all. All those things I mentioned, they work for some people, but they're not the only answer, the only solution. Creating wealth doesn't have to come through burnout or sacrifice, but it does require clarity, commitment, and a values-aligned path. It's going to require something from you to create it. You can't sit on the couch surfing whatever streaming service is your current favorite and believing wealth will find you without putting some skin into the game. But that effort, it's something that can look different for you than it does for me or the next person. It's different for every person, and it's different for how you want to build your life. Does the life you say you want match the life you're actually building? If not, it's not about pushing harder. It's about getting realigned. It's about finding out exactly what it's going to take for you to build what you want. Now, wealth blocker 6, here's what this one sounds like. I'm doing okay. I mean, I'm not rich. I'm not struggling. I'm fine where I'm at. Comfort zone attachment is such a real wealth blocker for so many people. And hey, okay, feels a lot better than chaos, but here's a trap. When the pressure's off, so is the progress. Comfort zones are quiet. They don't scream like survival mode. They just kind of make you numb into thinking you've made it far enough. I've been there. After years of financial stress, things finally leveled out. The bills were getting paid. I wasn't panicking at the grocery store every time I went shopping. And for a while, I felt like enough. I didn't want to rock the boat. I told myself, just stay here. Don't mess it up. But over time, I realized I wasn't growing. I was just coasting. And coasting doesn't lead to financial freedom. It just keeps you where you are until life throws the next curveball. And here's what I had to learn. Comfort is not the same thing as wealth. Stability is a milestone, not the destination. So if you've been telling yourself, you're fine, it's time to wake up and ask yourself, are you actually fulfilled, or are you just afraid to want more? There's nothing wrong with resting, but don't confuse recovery with arrival. The next level of your life is waiting, but you have to be willing to reach for it. And wealth blocker number 7, the biggest of them all, fear. Fear wears a lot of disguises. It shows up as playing it safe. It sounds like being responsible. Sometimes it even pretends to be realistic, but underneath it, fear of failure, fear of success, fear of judgment, fear of change. I've felt it all. Fear of asking for more because what if they say no? Fear of closing one business and starting another because what if I can't replace the income? Fear of finally getting ahead because what if I mess it up? For a long time, I didn't even call it fear. I just said things like, now's not the right time, or I just need to be more prepared. But deep down, I was scared of what it would mean to really go after the life I wanted, because once you go for it, you can fail or succeed or get seen or get criticized or have to hold more than you've ever held before. And all of that, it's vulnerable. But here's what I've learned. Wealth doesn't require courage. It builds it. You don't become fearless first. You take the next step while the fear is still there. If fear didn't have any roots in your life, what would you do differently with your money or your life? Because on the other side of that question is your next level. So those are the 7 wealth blockers. And here's the thing. None of them means you're doing something wrong. They just mean something in your mindset, your rhythm, or your beliefs is ready to evolve. You don't have to fix everything overnight. You don't need a perfect budget or 6-figure salary. You just need awareness and the willingness to start choosing differently, because wealth doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you stop living life on autopilot and start living on purpose. And if you're ready to take the next step and start creating wealth, watch this video next.